Okay, I'm gonna start, and then I'm sure people will come in. At least I hope we'll have some more people. But welcome everybody. My name is Jessica Johnston. I am an education program coordinator with the Ecological Society of America, and we are here for a water cooler chat today called Leveraging Local Environments and Cross-Cutting Themes to Implement the 4DEE. Before I introduce the host, I just want to go over the water cooler chat process. So this is, if you haven't been here before, it's very informal discussion, and we really want you as the audience to participate. So we welcome your ideas, your experience with the 4DE framework. We just ask that you mute your mic when you're not talking so that we don't get a lot of background noise. And if you would like to talk, feel free to raise your little participant hand and let us know, and the hosts will call on you to talk. You're also welcome to post comments in the chat box at any time. And we'd like to know where you're coming from today, what your background is. And also one more thing, we are recording today's event. So just be mindful of that. I would not be doing my due diligence if I didn't tell you some upcoming education events. So obviously ESA is hosting their annual meeting this upcoming August from the 14th to the 19th in Montreal, Canada. We are doing an in-person meeting for the first time in 2 years. So it's very exciting since I've been with the company for 3 years and I've not yet got to go to an in-person meeting. I'm pretty excited about that. Some of the education events that typically happen at the ESA annual meeting, one is the 14th annual Resources in Ecology Education Share and Fair. That's a great opportunity for upcoming professors to share resources centered on a common topic. I'll drop the chat I'll drop a link in the chat in just a minute. But we also have some workshops, some organized orals, an inspire session, all related to 4DE and education. So 4DE is something that you're really interested in. The ESA annual meeting is going to provide a lot of that for you. In addition to that 4DE thing, we just got a research coordination network funded by the National Science Foundation, which is called Transforming Ecology Education. And part of that TEE RCN, because we love acronyms in ecology, we're going to be hosting some faculty mentoring network. We have a call for faculty mentoring network coming up soon. And I say soon, it'll probably be in the next couple of weeks. And we will be offering a stipend for the participants for that upcoming call. So details can be found on that website. I'll drop that link in the chat as well after I'm done talking. But if you're interested in learning more about the TEE RCN and the upcoming faculty mentoring networks or any of the program activities that are involved with that, I will have a sign-up form that you can check out too. All right, so enough about that. I want to introduce today's hosts and thank them in advance for coming. So Sarah is a teacher, plant biologist, and eco-evolutionary geneticist. She did her PhD at Washington University in St. Louis, and she studies evolution and chemical defense and genetic basis of adaptation in a wide range of climates and common roadside plants. And she works at the Biological Science Department in Rowan University. And then Nathan Ruhl is an educator specializing in freshwater ecology in human-dominated ecosystems. He's the leader in Ecological Diversity Group at Rowan University, where the goal is to give undergraduate students an edge in personal and career development via engagement and real and inclusive scientific inquiry. Okay, I kind of butchered that a little bit, but without further ado, I'm going to kick this over to Nathan and Sarah.
Hello. Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone, for joining. Yeah, thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome.
So we have some slides to kind of guide us, but if we stray away from this, that is totally fine with me. Often when I do online teaching or online chats, I don't actually do like a full slide share. So if I leave it like this, is this okay with everyone? Can you see the full slide that I'm showing? Maybe give me thumbs, or I'm seeing some nods. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to leave it like this. I this is just kind of maybe a teacher trick, but I like this because I can highlight things as I talk about them. I can modify things as I go. So that's why I do this. So we have this this long title, Leveraging Local Environments and Cross-Cutting Themes to Implement 4DEE. I think we're already introducing ourselves, but if you haven't already, we would love to know your name and where you're from, and adding city and state is helpful. I've noticed from the beginning, we have a pretty good number of people from Pennsylvania and New York, which is our neck of the woods. We're at Rowan University, which is in southern New Jersey. So we the actual place is Glassboro, but we're pretty close to Philadelphia. And I will say, I see Texas A&M International, so I will point out I did do my undergraduate at the University of Texas, so I am a native Texan. But yeah, let us know where you're from. And then the other thing that we're sort of interested in knowing is what's the primary level of students that you're teaching? So if you're teaching freshmen, maybe you have like 100 level students. We'll tell you a little bit more about what we're teaching. Perhaps you're teaching ecology at a more advanced level. So I feel like just a number is okay, but if you want to elaborate, that's fine too. I'm just kind of curious, you know, what our student populations are like. And yeah, I teach across all the levels. So, you know, if it's all of them, that's understandable as well. Yeah, so we're all kind of mixed.
Yeah, we're all over the place.
Uh-huh.
We're all over the place.
So before we talk to you more about and ask you questions primarily, because this is a discussion. But before we get into some of that, we wanted to give you just a little bit about where we're coming from. A lot of people haven't heard of Rowan University, so go ahead and just say we've been the 4th fastest growing public research university for a few years, I think, and we still have that title. So we've experienced a lot of growth. I arrived about 3 years ago, but Nate's been at Rowan for longer. And I noticed one of our colleagues, Courtney Richmond, is here.
I was just going to say.
Rowan. Yeah, and she's been here for, well, Courtney, you can say how long. We have a relatively small department in terms of our faculty. We have a large number of majors. And we also, like many bio departments, we're serving a lot of non-majors too. And so because of that, we're shifting towards larger class sizes, hyper efficient use of resources, more online classes. And, you know, we sort of have been feeling that strain of growth, which is a good problem to have, but that's sort of where we've been. Our biology intro sequence has 4 courses. So we recognize this is not necessarily traditional, but we do emphasize skill development in all of these classes. They're all lab classes. And we also prominently feature ecology. So we think of this as sort of our capstone. It's the 4th class that we teach. And as we were working with 4DEE, that is the course. Nice, we have some others like that. That is the course where, where we're really sort of revamping the curriculum and where 4DEE has come into play. So we want to talk about some of the challenges that we've faced. But before I talk about that, we want to ask you some of what you've been experiencing. So one of the challenges that we faced was, quite honestly, just the value of requiring ecology has been questioned. Should this be something that we require of our majors? Yeah, basically, should it be a required class? So I'm curious, I have a variety of questions here. And I think maybe the chat box is a good place to do this, but if anyone wants to share out loud, that's great. And so you can, I'll shut up, but if you want to read these, think about them, maybe pick one to answer. I can read them out loud too. So to what extent does your administration or community support this curriculum? Do you require ecology for a degree in biology? We've had to negotiate some overlap between environmental science and ecology. So have you had to do that and how? And maybe about if you've already been working on 4DEE, what were some of the practical benefits there? So I'll kind of be quiet for a moment and let us chat in the chat box, and maybe we'll ask some to share out loud. Oh, is there a hand? Yeah. Yeah, Linda. Linda, would you like to share?
Sure, I just thought it would be easier to say it than to type it.
Absolutely.
So we have, as part of our intro sequence course, we have a course that I teach called it's Genetics, Evolution, and Ecology. So, you know, it comes after our cell molecular course. So we kind of move from really tiny things to really big things. And then we have another course as part of that intro called Biological Interactions, right? So it's very much integrated into those intro courses, though I don't think our students know that it's ecology per se, that's what they're getting. But the other issue that we have, it's not really an issue, but we now have a brand new environmental studies program, and which has several tracks, and it's very much focused on the humanities and the sciences, so both together. The intro courses for that major are team taught between humanities and science professors. So for that one, you know, students don't have to take ecology unless they're on the environmental science track of environmental studies, but they do have to take like an intro to environmental science, which doesn't cover all the things that we would cover in the upper level ecology course. But ecology is not required for a biology degree, but it's one of the electives. We have a track 3, like it's ecology and evolutionary biology track. They have to take a course in that. So maybe general ecology, it could be like a specific invasive species or marine biology course. So that's kind of how we've handled it.
Yeah.
Todd had his hand up.
Yeah, Todd.
Yeah, and
thank you for sharing too.
Yeah. Sure. So yeah, we are thought of as a health sciences school in a lot of ways. I think that one of the things that we maybe escape a little bit is the overlap with environmental science. Although I will admit that our administration sometimes mixes those up, more with our last administration than our current one. But yeah, that's been a struggle, and that's actually why I'm here this afternoon. Is I'm really excited to hear a little bit more about how we justify the involvement of ecology into general biology curricula. And you know, one of the things that I've tried to do is we have a fun discussion later in my course where we talk about how can you compare your gut to a forest. So I've worked hard to try to integrate ecology into all the pieces, but I'm curious to see how other people do that too. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. I talk about gut microbes when I bring up competition too, and I even bring in, like, you know, part of why doctors are interested in things like fecal transplants is to introduce new bacteria to that community that could like purge old bacteria, sort of. Yeah, so it's a good way to connect ecology to the healthcare field. Let's see. So we have Carmen. Carmen says they do require, we require an intro ecology degree or course as part of prerequisites. Okay, so it does sound like there's more of a requirement.
Did you want to talk, Carmen? You had your hand up.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that one of the reasons we got going with these, developing this framework, is that university administrators can be convinced that labs are important if the hands-on practices, regardless of what structure you have. Now, if you have a professional society say, this is what's needed in order to train biologists for the 21st century careers, and it is what's needed. If you talk about COVID, the spread of COVID is an ecological component, an ecological process that could be integrated, and should be integrated. All of the allergy courses in the health sciences need to know some ecology, because that's what we're allergic to. So, usually they say, oh, who cares about that? The chemists in every university have this wonderful society that, this dictates even to the size of the lab for upper level lab courses, sophomore to upper level. And often that's what's used as a way of designing science buildings, whatever the chemists say. And so now we have the ecologists saying for field courses, we must have field labs. And sometimes that's hard to get a van, university van, but this will validate it. And, ultimately, if you have some kind of, professional society validation, it affects your ability to rise above in your accreditation. So that's it. What are the practical benefits of doing it? If you're already doing hands-on teaching and integrating, the human dimension into your teaching, now you can say, and by the way, this is what our professional society says we should be doing. So have higher rank that way.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for that comment, Carmen. I feel like you've led nicely into sort of where we were going with this.
I wholeheartedly agree with that commentary, by the way. Like the chemists have a wonderful thing going there.
Yeah, and I'll just say, like, currently, although there's always turnover, but currently a lot of our administration at the college level is made up of chemists. And so we've had very similar conversations with them where they're very focused on assessments and standardization across sections, and they just use the ACS stuff. And so I put this graphic up. I'm not going to elaborate too much on this graphic. It's part of the publication that we had that came out in Ecosphere. So if you haven't read that paper and you want to elaborate or you want to learn more, please visit that. But basically, this is just meant to show that we had a lot of people that were interested in this course and interested in this course changing with a lot of different ideas. So we had to manage that. And so what we did was first we argued for that emphasis on skills and the human interactions piece that ecology has to offer. And so we were already teaching skills, but we kept harping on how important that was for our students to get jobs and to be able to be flexible in the workforce for careers that may not exist yet. And like Carmen suggested, we emphasized the support of 4DEE by the ESA. So as we were talking to these chemists who were our administrators, we were saying, if we use this, then this offers a framework that other people are using, that our organization supports. And because this is a growing thing, and like we're all here doing this water cooler, all of the professionals in this field are developing assessments that we can share. And so if we all sort of follow this same framework, then potentially in the future, not yet, but in the future, we can have more data for you, for the analytical chemists. Nate, do you want to elaborate any?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the one that had those meetings.
Right.
And they, it was kind of like blah, 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 ecologist wants ecology, until I started talking about assessment. And, this is talking to chemists and biochemists that are our administrators. And, as soon as I started talking about the potential for assessment by integrating with 4DEE, that was kind of the light bulb went on. I'm like, oh, I am interested in what you're doing. And it went from, oh, he's doing an okay job at what he's doing. Oh, this is a good idea. You're doing a good job.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and
that was critical.
Yeah, and it's still, we still feel like at times we have eyes on this course, people watching this course. And so there's pressure for it to do well. So that's fun. We also, I'll elaborate a little bit more on this later. The focus of this talk is not on the cure that we implemented, and we hope to publish more on this later, so we'll be a little maybe close to the vest, but we also have been working on implementing a cure. So and it's happening, and our administration loves that because it has the word research in it, and we are an R2 university that's trying to become R1. Mm-hmm. And based on what I said earlier, we have this good problem of too many students and not enough faculty. So we find that our students are often asking us for research experiences, and Nathan and I are both lecturers. We don't even actually, well, Nate does do some research, but we don't have research labs necessarily. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to find ways to support our students to give them that authentic research experience. But doing a cure does require a lot of subject matter expertise and a lot of coordination. So it's harder. But before we started implementing this, we were doing like individual projects with all of our students, and that became very unwieldy as we grew.
And
So I see.
Can I jump in for a second? I'll add that in meeting with administrators about the efforts that we were taking on to revamp this class, the cure was just as important as 4DEE. I mean, I know we're here to promote 4DEE, but the tie-in of something accessible with undergraduate research experiences was really the thing that sold it. Both of those things were critical for us.
Yeah, and I will elaborate more on the cure a little bit later, but we did use 4DEE to sort of inform what the focus of that was too. So there's a lot of practical skills that we're teaching, and there's a human interaction component as part of that. So we were sort of trying to develop that through the lens of 4DEE as well. Yeah, so we started this endeavor right after COVID happened. It was a really interesting time to start that. We were talking about revamping the course, and then a pandemic happened. So 2 summers ago, we spent a lot of time mainly with full-time faculty, basically going over our course alignment. And that took, Nate, how long did that take? Like all summer with like— We
actually created a course alignment. Like we didn't have one. And so we kind of got a little bit more organized and created a course alignment and laid out very clearly what we wanted our learning objectives to be. Where do we want to go with this class? What do we want our students to know? Which didn't exist prior. And that took us that whole summer really to develop that alignment. And that alignment functionally, the 4DEE was really important for us in making that alignment. 4DEE was our constant sounding board. We were always coming back to that and referencing, well, what are they saying we should include over here? What is the society saying is important for an ecology course, for a modern day ecologist to know? And we know that we're not going to be able to cover all of these topics in great detail, but we want this to be an introductory class that gives an idea of the breadth of ecology and stimulates students to explore those different areas after this class, because we offer all sorts of upper levels, right? So it took us about a year to do that, or not a year, a summer to do that. And then that fall, I piloted the first course to use the alignment and to incorporate the cure.
Yeah.
The first section.
So as we were doing that, we had a really mixed group of faculty. We had people who had been teaching the class for 20 years or 15 years who had been part of a previous redesign of the course. And so that previous redesign was really focused on active learning, and they integrated a whole lot of modeling as well, using modeling softwares and things. So very hands-on and skills-based. And there wasn't a lot of discussion of, in our previous version, there wasn't a lot of discussion of, honestly, like the environment and climate change. And so we saw that we were sort of heavily representing certain aspects of ecology and not really representing others. And so this discussion that we had with a lot of faculty that had been teaching the course for various periods of time, at points was a little contentious maybe. So I'm curious if any of you have had these discussions. Again, I have a bunch of questions and I'd love to hear from you, trying not to talk too much. I'm curious about what you've experienced with your peers, as maybe some of you are more advanced in your careers, or maybe you're newer. I'm definitely newer. And so the viewpoint can be just different based on where we are. So do your peers see human actions as being part of ecology? I think it was Linda, but I could be wrong. I know someone was commenting on how environmental science tends to be more human focused, but should we be covering some of that in ecology? Should we be focusing on facts or competencies, and why? And again, as Nate mentioned, we were always going back to 4DEE sort of as that sounding board. So maybe we recognized that what we were doing wasn't totally classical ecology, but we were using 4DE to help us push in that direction, like maybe to push a little bit away from the classical stuff. So love to hear from some of you. I'm going to be quiet again, and I'd like to hear some of your thoughts. And I need to look at a different view maybe to see all of the hands. So have you had debates with others in your department? What topics tend to be maybe more contentious, if any? Yeah, Urmi, sorry if I said your name incorrectly.
Yeah, it's Urmi. Hi, so I'm just a student, so I haven't really had, debates with other people, but I just want to say, like, regarding the role of, studying human actions in ecology, I personally think that's very important. I personally came into ecology because I was motivated by the environmental aspects. And now I am more interested in the, pure ecology side of things. But I think from a student's perspective, if they don't know a lot about what ecology is and why they should care about it, I think, framing it as from the environmentalist perspective can be like a hook to get them interested. And then we can, push them towards what we might call pure ecology. So, yeah.
That's a good way to say that, and the using it as a hook. We've used that same terminology in talking about how to get students to start thinking about core ecological principles. Hooking them in with current events, things that are very applied. I think Linda had her hand up again.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It was really interesting. I teach an invasive species course, and my students literally said that today about how do we were talking about, how do you, someone interested in caring about invasive species? Well, you talk about how it impacts them directly, and that hooks them in to understand, oh, this is, why this is the ecology of invasion. So absolutely, I 100% agree. In our department is very small. We have 6 faculty members in our biology department, and I'm the only one who teaches like the general, like upper level ecology course and the intro ecology course, actually. But we do have another faculty member on staff who teaches environmental biology. And so we haven't had any contention. She's actually my chair, but that's one thing, is when I'm up to teach this class again, which will be 1 year from now, I think, we're going to have a conversation about, okay, what do you cover? What will I cover? But my ecology, like when I teach it, it's a lot of facts and skill building and a lot of like applied, problem solving, statistics, that kind of thing. But, I try to bring in those human, interests. I don't want to say human interest story, that's not what I meant, but the human actions are definitely part of it. But I know when I taught it in the past, they kind of got pushed towards the end, like climate change always got pushed towards the end. And I'm trying to figure out how to integrate that better throughout the entire course.
Yeah. So I'll just put in a plug for, like, if any of you want to discuss more details of some of the examples, I do have some examples here, but if you want to reach out to us, I'm also happy to share with the community. I know that often my human tie-ins, they get tacked on to the end of a lecture or the end of an assignment. One example that I use, and I actually developed the online version, which is fully asynchronous, which is a whole challenge in and of itself. So I took the class we made and I made it a whole other kind of version. But one of the things that I do in that online version that I think is missing from the in-person is we do some logistic and exponential modeling just using like Excel, some pretty basic stuff. But then I have them think about it in the context of human population growth. And I have them think of it in the context of disease spread, how we can also model a disease population growing. And this is sort of when we're also just talking about modeling in general in the course. And one of the add-ons that I gave them was a podcast. It's a 538 podcast, but it's not political. It's about modeling COVID, and it came out in like April 2020. And they talk about sample size and biased samples and trying to parameterize different aspects of the disease and looking at a range of outcomes. And they also talk about how, like, if our models are correct, then we won't have as bad of an outcome as we predicted. So it kind of helps students to understand, I think, the process of modeling, even though in this really intro class, we're not getting that deep into it. And it's in an applied sense. So that's just one example, but I have some others that we'll share a little later. Todd says there's a strong sense in my department to see health and ecology as different parts of biology and as wholly separate pieces. The human aspect is largely relegated to environmental science at our school. So we have that. We have a new School of Earth and the Environment that happened in the past, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, something like that.
They've been around for, I think, 4 or 5 years now.
4 or 5, yeah. So we have conversations, but at times it can feel like they're trying to take some of our territory, I think. You know, like there is that sort of awkwardness that happens, and there are people who teach in both departments. And we also have 2 different like bio departments at our university. So we have one that they've called molecular and cellular biosciences, and then we have our biological sciences department. So they've also tried to kind of separate health from, I think they're trying to make us maybe we're in ecology. It's hard to say, but you know, there is some separation, and that gets tricky because they think the admin is worried about redundancy. So we want to touch, I like the word hook. We want to hook and we want to touch on these topics, but we also then want to point our students to the other classes that they can take in our department or in others to go deeper.
Yeah, and we're growing really fast, Linda, looking at your comment in the chat. And, you know, as our institution grows, you know, we're one of the older departments and we're one of the more established departments, but all these younger departments, you know, the newer departments, I should say, you know, they're looking for ways to grow. And, you know, so everybody's, you know, trying to get bigger. And so there's a lot of competition.
Yeah. But largely, I feel like we've been able to have those discussions, and we have good relationships with colleagues in our School of Earth and the Environment. And so, but it can be tricky, I would say. Okay, so let's...
To Todd's point in the chat just now, our departments are all in control of their own curriculums. At our institution, the faculty control the curriculum, but yeah, so every department's kind of doing their own thing with their own major. So in this particular course that we're talking about here, Intro to Ecology, the new environmental science department decided to adopt our 4-course core curriculum in biology, which I think is, did we already talk about that on our slides, Sarah?
Yeah, I can show it again.
Yeah, so they've got their environmental science majors taking our 4-course sequence at the moment, at least. You know, I think that is part of their calculus there, is that, you know, they have limited staff, they have limited faculty to teach classes right now. And so the intro, our intro course sequence serves them. And then they kind of spice it up with a few of their own intro classes as well. And then the environmental science majors some of them are taking our upper levels, but they've got a whole suite of upper level classes for their environmental science majors.
Yeah.
And the same is true for MCB, for our sister biology department. They don't take our core sequence, but they have a 2-course intro sequence that allows them to get into our upper level MCB courses. So our like molecular and cellular oriented courses, we have a couple of those still, so that they're able to get into those classes by taking their own intro series.
Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. So so we were kind of talking about what should be included and who has ownership, and some of what we did as we were modifying our older version of the course and moving towards 4DEE. We've reduced the extent of modeling. So I mentioned that was a really big focus. And that was probably one of the biggest debates we had, was how much modeling, and there were opinions on both sides. We used to do a lot of detailed pool and flux and Lotka Volterra modeling, and we used modeling software to do that, which was a whole set of skills that students had to develop just to use the software. So there's sort of an entry level amount they had to learn, and then you wanted to use it multiple times once they learned it. So when we cut it, it kind of dropped a few of our labs off. But we did maintain basic modeling using Excel. I think in the future we have ideas of maybe going more towards something like R, but our students don't have that much experience with that. And Excel is something that I can say, like, my husband in social work uses this. So like, it's a good skill to have no matter what field you're in. And we use Excel to teach some basic statistics that we know they're going to need later for their projects that are related to the bigger cure. But we did also add some things. So I mentioned that podcast already. So we added a podcast about modeling. So even if they're not doing as much, I think understanding the nature of modeling and hearing modelers talk about it makes it more accessible when they see it in the news or something like that, because it seems very abstract. I also, in the online course, and these are, again, things I'm happy to share, I've created a whole series of discussion boards that try to get the students to talk about these open-ended things that we would normally maybe have a discussion about in class. And what I usually do in these discussion boards is I give them like 30 different links to various things that they can read about, and I ask them to pick a couple and then share back. So the first one that they do is just, what is a model in science? What does that word mean? And so they come up with all kinds of stuff: model organisms, the model of DNA, the ball and stick models in chemistry. They kind of, some of them talk about math and equations, but they're less familiar maybe with that. And then the next week, we do another discussion board that's, how do we use this to solve problems? And I particularly focus on climate change, conservation, or biodiversity. And we use the classic loggerhead sea turtles because we're in that kind of part of the country, as well as COVID spread. So we have them discussing modeling more, but we've lost a little bit of the actually doing it. On the flip side, though, that allowed us to do more of other things. So we've increased the discussion of human impacts on the environment. We talk about climate change. I know I talk about the IPCC reports that come out: pollution, urban environments, landscape use, habitat fragmentation, and biodiversity loss. All of these things we talk directly about how humans affect these issues. And then, of course, we added a cure that allows us to have students do that authentic research. And ours centers more on environmental gradients and emphasizes scientific practices.
I'll add, if you don't mind, one of the really cool things that I think we've done with this cure, with this class of ours, this intro to ecology class, that exists in 2 states right now. We have an in-person version that is an in-person modality, and then we also have an online version of the course. And so we've tried to finagle a way that we can have a cure and have integration with 4DEE across these multiple modalities, and I think we've done that pretty well. Though there's definitely a give and take with with the class format. There's things that you can do online that you can't do as well in person, and there's things that you can do really well in person that you can't do online. So there's a little bit of a give and take there. They're not exactly the same class, but they both have a research experience in them, and we're trying to achieve these same goals in both versions of the course.
Yeah. So I want to share a few quotes from students, and then we'll talk more about the cure that we've kind of been hinting at. So I try to put in student reflections as examples of evidence that what we're doing is good. So while we were trying to increase this discussion of how humans play a role in our environment, these are some of the quotes that students pulled out. So growing up, I heard a lot about global warming in school, but I never truly understood the severity of what humans are doing. So even though I like to think of my students as like they've been hearing about climate change their whole lives, I've gotten multiple comments from them that they're like, I never really learned about this though, or how we're playing a role in it, which is a little surprising. They talk about scale. And so this is exciting to me, having them think about different patterns across different scales and how something that happens in one part of the world can have larger scale effects. So whenever we talk about climate change, I talk about wildfires. It's in the news a lot. And so we usually think of small scale impacts like that wildfires can have, but to think it can impact us on a larger scale was amazing. And so that's thinking about like global carbon cycling and losing forests. And then this one, I feel like this quote, this is what we need to show to our administration maybe to emphasize why this class is important. The student says it. So the first step to helping solve the problem of climate change is by understanding the basic mechanisms by which humans have disrupted natural nutrient cycles. And to me that, yes, like I'm glad that they got that. And I agree. And this is what we teach in ecology. And without those fundamentals, how could they possibly understand the problem? Yeah,
and this is a really good reason to do discussion boards as well, because, you know, here we have the basis for assessment, right? You know, we can start to assess our effectiveness based on student perception, not just on, you know, the grade they achieve at the end of the day, which I think is also important.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about challenges and things that we face that were difficult, but I also want to frame it more in the context of opportunities and exciting things that have come from this. So I want, one of our longstanding goals, and this was before we redesigned the course, was to have an experiential, hands-on, authentic scientific experience. That they're not just reading books and answering multiple choice questions, but they're doing science. And then since COVID, then we're like, okay, and we want to do this in all modalities, which is hard. So I want to hear more about who your students are. Where do they live? So we have students that live right by campus, which is suburban, and then we have students that are in Philadelphia, which is very urban. How do your students see themselves? Do they think they're like part of nature or removed from it? Maybe that changes as they're taking your class. I like to talk to my students about how they are scientists in training. I'm curious if any of you perceive your students as viewing themselves that way. I also think it's important for us to think about how we're welcoming students into our field, making it sort of friendly for them and exciting for them. Marketing matters. So and help them feel like they're part of it. So what are they doing that makes them feel like a scientist? And then also, I know I give you lots of questions, but you can answer any of them. We thought a lot about our local environment and what we do have access to that's like free to us, sort of. And so I'm curious, you know, what kind of aspects of your campus, your region, your state could you leverage to look at how human interactions sort of interact with ecology practices? How can you get your students out in their area, taking measurements, doing something that is also an ecology practice? Okay, so maybe that's a lot. I'll pause. Would love to hear ideas. Maybe that's too much.
So I was just typing, and that's why I didn't respond earlier. But I love the idea of telling my students that they're scientists in training and encouraging that perspective. But sometimes I get pushback from those who are more engaged in the health sciences aspect, and, oh, I don't need to be a scientist. And sometimes that becomes an incredibly productive discussion about how science has to be the foundation. And then other times I can't make it move from there. So if there are thoughts or reflections on how to do that discussion, I would love to hear.
You know, there's always going to be students that are unwilling to engage in the process of learning when they've already made up their mind coming into it that it's not for them and they're upset they have to do it. They've put up the wall and it's hard to get that wall back down. I had a student this semester, he had his wall up from day one. I made him go outside and look at plants, and he was upset. He's told me that he got the flu going outside, and he wants to be a nurse, and that this isn't for him. And then, of course, everyone I tell that story to is like, he has got a lot more work to do to be a nurse. He thinks going outside in the cold is what gave him influenza. But there was no getting through to him. He and I did everything I could to try to get to him on why this class was important to him in his nursing career, but he just was not receptive to it. But the vast majority of students in my experience are really receptive to it. And we've certainly had a lot of students in the past that just put up the barrier right away. But when you say explicitly, you're here to be a scientist in training, and we're going to train you in skills of a scientist, and you're going to find out whether or not these are things you like doing. You know, you're going to find out if you're going to be a field biologist. You're going to find out if you want to be a bench scientist. You're going to find out if you want to do computational biology. You know, you're going to get some experiences in this class that are going to inform your future decisions, you know, in this realm of science. Then that's not as hard to sell. You know, they're on board for that typically. Danielle, I saw your hand up.
So I am at Texas A&M International, and we're in Laredo, so we're on the border. So I have students that are actually from both sides of the border. And we are 96% Hispanic institution, as we've been labeled. And I teach an intro bio course that is botany focused, and as a plant ecologist, I'm like, yay. So what I did is I borrowed the personal bio Blitz that the Rutgers herbarium put together and modified it. So I have my students collecting observations using iNaturalist of plants throughout the entire semester, as a way of sort of tricking them into learning to observe all of the plants that are around them. And I think some of them are, unfortunately, they're telling me, I can't find any plants. I went to a state park, and I'm scratching my head going, I don't understand how you could find plants in a state park. But I think that I use the same thing with my non-majors course, and they love it. And they're like out running around getting pictures of like all kinds of different things. And so I think it's actually really interesting to see the dichotomy of my majors intro course. The students are much more resistant to this BioBlitz, whereas my gen ed course seems to really love it. It's basically the same activity. It's solely focused on plants for the course that is plant focused, and on all organisms for the other one. But that's how I'm incorporating ecology into both courses and getting that, like, they're getting the observation skills, even if it's just going and taking a picture. Like, they don't know that they're learning that skill, but I'm getting them to learn that skill. So I guess that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, I love that project. I do a similar thing, a little more detailed, but a similar thing in my upper level plant diversity class that I teach. So a lot of go out and find plants and tell me about them. What do you see? kind of stuff. So maybe ask me to do a little more, but I also saw another hand. I think maybe it was Chris. Do you still?
Sure, yeah. No, I mean, I'm coming from a totally different place. So I am like the only.
Oh no, we lost your audio. I'm guessing.
Sorry, he's muting, self-muting earphones. I need to make them stop doing that.
Okay.
I'm starting over. So I teach at a place, I teach only non-majors, and I've been trying to think about how to incorporate some of these things into non-majors classes. And I'm just wondering if anyone has tried to do a course-based undergraduate research experience for non-majors, where like they actually get this experience of doing this, or is that just way too much?
I haven't tried it.
It could be done. Sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I haven't tried it.
I don't see why you couldn't do it. I mean, there's really no barrier to doing it beyond, you know, making the materials and you know, devising the curriculum around it. You know, I don't see why that couldn't be done, and I think it would be you know, a great way to introduce non-majors to science.
how scaffolded, like, I mean, you have multi-course sequences, and I saw your ecology is at the end of one. I mean, like, how much is their ability to participate in this QR at your fourth course scaffolded by the previous experiences? Because if the majors are getting tons of scaffolding and then they're succeeding in this, then I'm in trouble because I have one course.
Well, you would have to start from an appropriate place, and you would have to have different goals. Like we know that coming into our class, our students have a certain skill set and that we can lean on that. And we also know that they don't have certain skill sets.
Yeah.
So
we also have a lot of transfer students. So we do get students that take this class that haven't actually done our first 3 or have only done one of the first 3. So we do have a fair amount of scaffolding at the beginning just to like get them ready to do the cure, basically.
Thank you.
And I want to say more, but we're also kind of short on time. But Carmen has her hand up too. And so I'm going to give Carmen a second, and then we might move on to our last sort of discussion point.
I thought Jeanette was first, or did Jeanette, did you go already?
No, I didn't.
Jeanette, sorry.
That's okay,
sorry.
that's fine. No worries. I'll just keep it really quick. I made up an acronym called Your Inner Scientist. I know your inner something is not really original, but whatever, I call it your inner scientist. And I stress to the students that they're already scientists. And the most important quality is just to have curiosity about the world around you. And I'll just say really quick that most of the students that I teach are from urban or suburban environments. And I'm kind of shocked at how little they know about natural history. And we have a suburban campus, and there's a stream on there. And so I try to use it as like a living laboratory. And I think some of the best compliments that I've gotten, I get the kids out there. Yes, we use INAT. We do some water quality stuff with the stream. And I think some of the best compliments I've gotten are things like, wow, I've been on this campus for 4 years and I've seen more of it in the 2 weeks of this class than I have in my whole 4 years, things like that. So I try to stress that there's like a perfect marriage between natural history and ecology, and then even environmental sciences.
Yeah. Well, and I think a couple of, so Danielle and Jeanette, I think y'all are hitting on what I think is really important, which is just getting them out there doing something. Like we like to think a lot about what are they getting on the back end and what skills are we building? What can they take away from this experience? But I think we kind of forget that like they haven't even had these experiences sometimes. I taught in St. Louis for a little while during graduate school. And I remember there was a whole group of students that had been selected to go for their spring break to Costa Rica. And so we would take them to the Missouri Botanical Garden and show them the climatron and tell them like some of the stuff they're going to see. So that when they were there, they weren't just like, that's cool and that's pretty, but they could use some biology information. And I remember I wanted to contrast, how is this different from a forest you might see in Missouri? And I asked, how many of you have just gone walking in the woods? And 0 of the urban St. Louis students that I was with had that experience. So yeah, especially with these intro or even non-majors classes, just getting them out there doing something and collecting data, even if you know it's kind of not very good data, then you can still talk about that too. So yeah, and Carmen was going to say something.
It's very quick. Just wanted to say that I've always preferred teaching non-majors, and my non-majors course had a lab, and so it is making noticing things that we take for granted when we look at nature at the landscape and they don't see it. So getting them to see, if you have a stone wall nearby, or, if you don't have something physical like a stream or that, take Fort Myers, the mall in Fort Myers is a hangout for wood storks, which is a protected species in Florida. But it does very well in Fort Myers by the ditches near the mall, the main mall there. And so you'd be surprised what you can see if you take them out. The ultimate thing that works for non-majors is the cultural history of the region, and connecting that with you making the connection with ecology of the region. And you know, you may want them to research the history, any aspect of, especially environmental history, and do that. But people going out into the woods in St. Louis, that would be unsafe for them. So I wouldn't expect them. But all of us can take people out, and that'll make it safe for them. So
yeah. Well, and I was meaning more like, you know, on trails and things, not just, but yes. Okay, so I think we're okay. So what we did was, yeah, we explicitly tell the students, you are scientists in training. It's like one of the top things I tell them right at the beginning of the online class. It's at the top of their first weekly overview. I also just constantly tell my students why they're doing certain things, why this is valuable. So we talked about pushback from pre-health students, and sometimes they get mad that I'm like, you know, just making them look up literature and stuff. And we're talking about primary and secondary literature. And I say, well, what if you become a doctor and you have a patient and they have symptoms that you've never seen before, and you have to figure out what it could be? You might actually have to dig into the literature. And how are you going to do that? And how are you going to navigate that? And so the skills that I'm teaching you, even though we're using them for ecology, are useful across science. And so just repeatedly telling them why. We have them find and read scientific articles. We give them large data sets to analyze, or they collect it. And we have them present all of their findings in multiple formats. We leveraged our local environment. And so we are suburban, but we live near a major urban area. So that provides opportunities for comparisons in urban and suburban areas. And our students come from those places. So one student can collect data in one place and another can collect it in another place, and we can bring it together in a collaborative way. We also sort of have this mosaic landscape. So I won't say that we've taken advantage of all of these ecosystems, but I think if you're wanting to focus more on skills and natural history, and it's important to reflect on your region. And I think we're all doing that. Our Cure, we have them do a variety of things, and these are all sort of labs throughout the semester. Early on, we're reading and dissecting literature. We're identifying species in the local environment. We have students build their own quadrats. And so we have them building and using quadrats and measuring a variety of traits. And they did this even when we were remote and online. So they have instructions and they take pictures with their quadrats and they go use them. We measure a variety of adaptive traits. And again, we're focused on things that vary along environmental gradients. So we can use urban to rural, but you may be able to think of another type of natural gradient that you can leverage in your local ecosystem. We perform analysis using Excel. And then, like I said, we have presentations. Students like it. So we make them go out and find plants, but they like learning that they don't have to do research only in a laboratory. So scientific research is not limited to labs. There are plenty of opportunities.
Been a mind-blowing thing actually for them. Like we
They
get
don't
feedback
realize.
that I didn't know you could do science outdoors. You know, our students are laser focused on science happens in the lab.
Pipettes. It's all about transferring tiny liquids, right? Because we're asking them all to go find their own specimen, but all collect the same data in our Cure, they have a sense of involvement. Like each one of them is bringing a set of data and contributing to the whole data set. And they like it. And this is a comment from COVID, but it's fun to get outside and be active for once. So we were asking them to go out when a lot of them were stuck at home. It makes me feel like I am in the making of a scientist researcher. I can feel like I am part of real research. So we hope to publish our Cure and that you can read about all of the details of it. But the bottom line is that it doesn't have to be groundbreaking, right? Putting them in their local environment, having them use tools and having them collaborate and do some data analysis goes a long way towards making them just feel like they are doing science. They're not just listening to us. I think we have 1 minute left. And so I want to sort of advertise this, and this is sort of like my baby and something I'm really passionate about. So I'm going to like rattle on for like a couple minutes here, and then I'm happy to stay for a few minutes if others want to talk more about this briefly. So to me, it's really important to zoom ecology into the 21st century. And a big part of that is big data, but I've also been really focused on accessibility, having students realize how easily they can access ecological information and learn about scientists. So I'm gonna quickly just talk about these two discussion boards that I use that, again, they're in an online class, but I think I'm tooting my own horn, but I think they're great. And they help with this, helping students see themselves as scientists. So one thing I have them do is I have them profile an ecologist. I give them a couple links to press release websites, and I tell them, find something that sounds cool to you. So they have to find a news article. And then once they find that news article, they have to find the researcher that's actually being featured. So it was written by somebody, you know, writing for the ESA or writing for whatever, but they have to find the researcher, and then they have to go and find the scientific paper. They also have to look the researcher up. And so I talk to them about scientists at different stages of training and how science is just a series of tiered mentorship, and that I'm just, you know, 10 or 15 years further along, and that's why I'm mentoring them, but I also have my own mentors. And so they go and they figure out where their scientist is in their stage of training. Some of them are PhD students, some are full professors. They find their lab websites, they find their CVs, they find their ResearchGate pages, and they share it, and their social media. And so I get comments like this. This may be silly, but I was actually drawn to your discussion post because one of the mentors' last names is very similar to mine. This is a non-white student. My ecologist also got her PhD from Stanford, but she started in community college. That just goes to show how education is all the same, can get you to any place. So they see themselves in these people. I'm seeing more ecologists from outside the US than I expected. And they also help each other. One of them couldn't find the CV, and they're like, oh, if you go to the website and you click on news, then you can find it in the About Me part. So they're also like clicking on each other's links in these discussion boards, and they're seeing this whole world of science and of ecology that I don't think they even realized was there, and they're just clicking around on their computers at home.
And from my perspective, this kind of speaks to the emphasis on for the future on competencies. You know, we really need to be training our students in competencies and being able to access information, ecological information, and access the world of ecology outside of the scientific literature is one of those competencies that we need to be promoting. And is, you know, I can get around okay in that, but I've learned it in my career. They weren't teaching that when I was, you know, when I was 18 or 19. That wasn't, nobody knew Facebook was going to turn into what it was, or what it is rather.
Yeah.
And so that's a competency that we need to remember to include.
Yeah. Yeah. Humanizes is a great word, Jeanette. And they also see the utility. So as they're reading about what they're doing, they're saying, oh, it's amazing how hunting has an effect on forests that we can't see directly. So they like reading each other's articles, or this person brought special attention to a neglected matter and took a huge step in preventing toxins from being consumed by innocent animals. So they're also viewing these people as solving problems, which is important because we want them to see the utility of ecology, like Nate said. And they also see how they say it's really cool that you can connect with other scientists and travel. This person studied in the Serengeti. I think they also express that they trust ecologists. Sometimes I feel like science is under attack. And so the student says, in my opinion, Dr. Buma seems really devoted to his work with discussions of global warming. I wonder what their thoughts and predictions would be. So they're wanting to know what these experts would think. The last thing I'll say is I have a follow-up discussion board where we focus on global research networks, and I show them 2 YouTube videos that are like 5 minutes each. One's about NEON, which is the NSF's national program with remote sensing, and one is about Forest Geo, which is through the Smithsonian, and it's a global network of forest plots where they do censusing and they have standard protocols that they all use. And if you watch that video, you see people from all over the world. So it also shows them the diversity. And they find really cool things. This is long. I'm not going to read all of this, but this is all one post from one student who went on the Forest Geo website and they read about arthropod monitoring protocols. They said things like 500-meter transcript, all of these different variables. They talked about different ways that you can trap and bait different types of organisms, talked about DNA barcoding, and so forth. So I also just have the students, like, I try to give them access to a lot of resources, and I say pick one thing and post about it. But then the whole class is exposed to a variety of things, and they can pick what seems coolest to them personally. So anyway, I think these are great, and I think it helps. And I think these would be good for non-major classes, but I think it helps students see the community and the accessibility of the field, which is part of having them believe it's important and achieving that buy-in. So anyway, happy to stay a little longer. I went a little over. Also happy to talk to any of you outside of this if you have questions. Thank y'all. Hopefully we didn't talk too much.
Thanks so much. Great job.
Thanks, Courtney.
Thanks, Nathan and Sarah, for joining us today. You guys did a phenomenal job. Very inspiring talk.
Happy to take any questions too,
try.
if folks have them.